Hey guys, welcome back to para.university. Today we're going to go over C++ data types. So I already have VS Code pulled up and I'm just going to go ahead and start out with the basics. We start out with hash, include, IO for in out, stream, then I always like using namespace, std for standard. Now we have to make our actual body, which is int, and int, as we're about to learn, stands for integer, main, some empty parentheses, and bracket. The brackets are going to hold our body. And go down a little bit, and of course return 0 to let the program know it is successfully completed. And just something I like to do, I like to start out with cout. Remember cout, anytime we do out, we do point to the out. And L, and the L stands for line. Go down a few more spaces, tab, cout, end, oops, excuse me, end L. Okay, and that just gives a little bit of a buffer. I'm going to go ahead and compile this. Now I have my terminal in view so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to compile this just to start out. Before we type anything in the terminal, we're going to do Control S for save. G++ main.cpp -o test. All right, so that will compile everything. So now we're going to do period \test.exe for executable. Let it run, and we just have two blank lines of space. That's exactly what I want, just because I like a little bit of buffer between all the mess here that is part of the terminal and information for where you are. All right, let's get into what we're here to talk about. Int for integer. Of course, that's only going to give you a whole integer, no decimals. So we have float if you want a decimal. If you need more numbers, whether it be decimals or whole numbers, more spots for integers to go, then you have double. And of course, they can be signed or unsigned. The default's that they're going to be signed, so you have negatives in there as well. Next, we have char for character, string for a string of characters, and bool for boolean. Let's start out with int. Pull the terminal down. And before we get into these, we need to talk about variables. So a variable, just like you learned in math class, is any representation of something else. So like x can equal 3, or whatever value you want, if you go back to just your very basic fundamental algebra. So let's say we have a variable called x, and it's going to be a integer. So we would have int x equals 5. Now, if we want to see x, we'll cout. Remember, point to the out. And here we can just do x and L, Control save, compile. And of course, I forgot my semicolon. They are the death of everyone in C++. Compile. Also, don't forget to save anytime you make any changes. Compile and execute, and there we go. Pull this up. We output 5. So now let's say we want to have a decimal. What if we want 5.5? Well, we would need a float value or a double value for that. But float is the same as double, just with less memory allocated. So let's do float. We're going to call it y. A variable name will be y equals 5.55. Now we can cout x, and we can also cout y and L. Control save. Don't want to forget that save. All right, now we'll pull up the terminal, compile it, run it. 5 and 5.55. Perfect. All right, so now let's talk about characters or just char. So char, let's name our variable, I'm going to call it number x equals, and now this is very important, so our numbers, we did not have any quotations around them, they were just the numbers by themselves. Now we need a set of quotations. Single quote is fine. Number x is going to be just called x, single character. And we'll do char number y equals y. Of course, characters can be any character at all, so we'll do char symbol equals, let's just do exclamation. let's get rid of our x and y's up here. Now let's see out. Let's do number x. And when you want to make spaces when you're doing couts, quotations, just make a space. Keep going with the arrows. This breaks up all the individual pieces of what you're going to output. And you know what? We can do one better than that. Let's do an equal sign in there. And then we'll do x and L. We'll see out number y equals y and L. Control save. Let's see what happens when we compile and run that. See if I missed any semicolons. Compiled. Execute. X equals 5, y equals 5.55. Okay, something I want to point out real quick. If you look at these characters, they're surrounded with a single quote. That's very important. All characters are surrounded by just a single quote. Unlike down here, if you notice, I used a double quote in my C outlines. Those are going to be double quotes. And also when you have a string, which we're about to get into in just a second, those are going to be double quotes as well. All right, so now I'm going to keep my exclamation symbol. Let me get rid of these. Bring my return up some. All right, so now let's do a string. So string, and let's call it string x. Why not? Equals. Now we use double quotes, and this can have spaces in it as well. So we can say x space equals space, semicolon, string y equals y space equals space, semicolon. We'll see out. We'll do string x, and I already included a space in the actual string itself, so I'm not going to put in another space. X and L, see out string y and L, control save. Let's compile it, test it. X equals 5, y equals 5.55. Perfect. And of course, these variable names, they can be whatever you want. So let's just, for an example, change string x to my number, as long as you're consistent. So now we have to come down here and change this to my number. Control save, compile, and execute. And there you go. Your number is still going to be the number 5. And finally, just to get into the basics here, I want to talk about bools. So a bool is basically a statement that says true or false. Of course, 1 is true, 0 is false. All right, so let's create a bool variable. Bool is equals, let's put some parentheses here to combine all these. X equals y. Now we already know that x is 5, y equals 5.55. So let's see what happens when we see out is equal indel, control save. All right, let's see what happens. Pull it up a little bit, compile, and test 0, because 0 is false. So we know that is not true. X equals 5, y equals 5.55. But if we change y to just y equals 5, control save, compile, execute, 1 is true. And there you go. Those are the very basic types: int, float, double, character, string, and bool. And those types are going to be stored in variables such as x, y is equal, whatever you want. You can name it anything you want. There is convention, but that's not going to be for this video. And then of course, C out and put in your variable's name and it will output whatever its value is. I hope you learned something. Hope you got something out of this. Stick around, more C++ to come. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.